Hello, Super Chats Anime Thing, episode 4 or something I think we're at.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we're having fun. We're talking about anime. Welcome. Full spoiler mode is in effect. Just as in every week, we're going to talk about what we watched, and we're going to talk about how we felt about it, what we thought, what our impressions were. So, continuing on with our weekly Frieren update, we're on episode 21 this week, The World of Magic. We got a flashback at the beginning to Frieren meeting Flom's master, who was the other elf we met at the end of last week's episode.
Yeah.
She seems pretty solid. She knows what she wants. She wants conflict and more, and she's incredibly knowledgeable.
Yeah.
She lives with all the grimoires that she's collected over the years, apparently, and she seems like an interesting character.
It'll be real fun to see what if she makes an actual appearance here sometime soon.
Yeah, it was one of those things where the flashback showed their first meeting, which was at Flom's behest, and immediately the other elf was like, "I don't really like this girl."
Because they're like a chain of masters too.
Yeah, so it's like passed down from one to the other. So
And Frieren is oddly enough the youngest right now.
yeah, exactly. Well, Flom is human, so she's
She
been
was
dead for
human,
1,000
yeah.
years at this point.
But she was Frieren's master.
Yeah, and it's
So.
great because in a little bit, Frieren breaks the barrier around the first test, and the other elf, whose name is just escaping me right now, but she's just like, "Oh, so this is how you say hi after 1,000 years. I see how it is." But yeah, the two girls that are with Frieren at this point are Kane and what's the other one's name? Something.
I can't do names.
Yeah, I know. The ice girl and the water girl. They get separated and they're fighting a guy named Richter, or something like that. Either way, Frieren pretty handily defeats the guy she's fighting, Denkin. And then,
He's completely outclassed.
yeah, he thinks, well, he knows he's hot shit because he's been around for like 70 years or whatever, and he's very learned and he's a great mage and all this.
He thought
But-
that obviously he thought if he pushed really hard, real fast, that he could end it before she got any chance to do anything. And when it didn't immediately work, he's like, "Oh, yeah, not happening. I'm way outclassed."
Yeah, he burned up all his mana trying to fight her and didn't really make any progress. So Frieren ended up getting the bird back from that. And then we went back to Richter and the other two. Frieren broke the force field, the barrier, yeah, around where they're doing their first test, and that let the rain in, and so now they can basically use the full effect of water magic
Because they're water magic specialists.
Yes, and so they washed away Richter, basically kicked his butt. So both teams survived, but Frieren's team ended up with the still the burb that they
Yep.
were trying to get for the whole thing. We followed Denkin's team a little bit afterwards, and they came across another team that had a bird, but they were down to two. One of their guys had been killed, so they were just like, "What do? We don't have any mana." And Denkin's just like, "You got fists, don't you?" Like, which was a really great moment. He's just like, "You're a man, get up and fight," like. And then
So you're a mage. You're out of mana. There's only one thing to do. Takes his cape off.
fisticuffs, my gentleman. So yeah, he jumps into the ring and beats up these guys. We get a shot at the end of the episode of Denkin and his troop like holding the bird and like getting bandaged up. So they made it through. They're on to the next point. What was the other thing? Oh, we checked in with Fern's group for a second, and they're just like, "Don't you have any other spells aside from just pure attack magic?" And she was like, "I can see through clothes." And then green-haired girl was like, like hiding.
The first time you see the freaky murder fetish green-haired girl actually be a little awkward.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was a pretty fun moment, frankly. And then that was basically how it ended. Was we have 18 people, 6 teams of 3 that have passed the first test in the overall test. It's the first part of it. And then we spend a couple days. They say it's been a couple days at this point.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to part 2 of the exam next. And then we got a nice little cut in at the end of Stark. And he's just sitting in a bar. He's just like, It's been so nice without them. I can go to bed when I want and I don't get yelled at. It's really cool. And then the bartender's just like, you have it rough, don't you? You know? But yeah, Stark hasn't factored in at all for the last few episodes.
Give him a little shot just to remind us that he's still there. He's just hanging out in the city.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, I thought this was a really good episode. There was a lot of good action. There was the question of if the other girls in Frieren's group were going to get murked by Richter, but yeah, they came out in the end and beat him because Frieren's help. I thought it was a really, like, there were some really fun moments. There was some really, like, just strong character development and stuff. We've got a good feel for all the characters that we've talked about really so far.
Yeah.
The ones that are still in because of pure dumb luck, and the ones that are just like in because they just beat the crap out of some other guys. And like,
it's showing that some of them, they were just weaklings. They shouldn't have really been there. And then others are getting through, pure force of will.
Yeah, we're at the point where like 18 is a lot of characters, but that's enough people that you can at least like, you can convey certain things about them just by their appearances and stuff, and you can sort of keep track who's doing what and where and when. So going forward, I'm sure there's going to be a few more just like people getting killed off on the side and stuff that aren't like super impactful or important to the stories. But as far as we know, going forward, they're not going to be on teams anymore. It's going to be back to individual basis. So, and then the next episode is called Future Enemies, which could be interesting. Oh, there's so many possibilities. Carlos and I were discussing after we finished watching this episode that we're sort of feeling that like something dumb is going to happen and Frieren's not going to be the one that gets her A+, you did a great job mage certification. It's going to end up being like Fern, and then Frieren just won't end up having it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's like, I can see something like that happening. There's going to be some kind of a twist, I feel like. Just because, like, Frieren doesn't even really care about it.
She doesn't even want it. She just is doing it because she has to.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then some people are doing it so they can learn a spell from Frieren's master's master. So it's like everybody has their reasons for doing it, but hers is not that great. She's just here to hang out, and she doesn't really care anyways, because she's just like, I have to wait 5 years or whatever for the next test. I don't care. That's nothing to her, All right. But yeah, solid episode, a lot of good action, and some pretty fun plot developments too, actually. Next up, we switched over to the Ancient Magus Bride, episode 4, Everything Must Have a Beginning. We started like a little mini 2-episode arc here, which is how far we followed through with it. We got, at the very beginning, Chise wakes up on a train after the last episode where she was like, she helped a dragon die, basically.
Yeah.
She sort of had his like last moments with it, and then she passed out because she used all her magic up, basically, or she transferred a lot of magic around. Either way. So she wakes up on the train, and it's a train that's not meant for humans, and she meets a talking cat. A talking cat! And the talking cat informs them that they're on their way to meet the king of cats. And in the cat's kingdom, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they meet the king of the cats as soon as they get to this little village, and her name is Molly, and she's the king.
And it's a kingdom of cats, which is actually just a town in the middle of nowhere where a lot of cats live.
There's so many cats in this town.
And they are all talking magic cats.
Yes, they are. And they're pretty great, honestly. Chise meets a little girl for about 5 seconds, and the little girl's like, that's my cat, Molly, who is the king of cats. And then the girl runs away, and Molly's just like, that's my child. I raised her. That's my baby girl. And so, like, that sort of gives you, like, Molly's stakes in this is, like, she's, like, the entire thing is she wants to protect this area because that girl is, like, her girl. We also learned that cats actually do have literally 9 lives. It's not figurative in this environment, and Molly's on her 9th. So,
yeah,
as they die and go through their lives, they get more and more wise through their lives.
Yeah.
If you need more information, please see Puss in Boots and The Last Wish. It was a good movie. So yeah, the reason that they're here, Chise and Elias, are here to clear some corruption that is happening. Yeah. And this corruption, as we find out, is due to a guy that used to live here, and he killed a lot of cats, and then the cats banded together under the first king of the cats and killed him back. and
Yeah.
then they chucked his body in the lake apparently. Either way, because of that, there's some corruption that's still hanging out there.
And this is also where we learn there is, in fact, a very big divide between what being a sorcerer and a magician is in this world.
Yeah, sorcerers are very sketchy folks, and that they approach it as like magic as a science, and
Science, alchemy, that sort of thing.
yeah, and it seems like every one of them that we've met so far is not a good person, and they're very evil and bad, and they do bad things. And they're basically out to expand their knowledge no matter what pain or damage it causes. So at this point, they take the cats take Chisei out to show her where the corruption is, and then Chisei immediately gets like abducted, thrown into the lake. Again, she's gotten abducted quite a few times already.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a pattern already. So she gets thrown into the lake, and then she gets a flashback to two people named Mina and Matthew and their lives together. She talks to Mina's spirit in the lake, and Mina's just like, "You gotta kill us," because the corruption is actually Matthew, and that is the problem.
They're kind of like their souls are stuck together as part of the curse in the lake.
Yes. So after this point, Chisei gets yanked back out of the lake, and Elias is just like, "What happened?" Yeah, like, oh no. And then they get ready, Chisei ready to clear out this corruption. She has to be the one to do it because Elias, whose name I always say wrong, he is shadow based, so he cannot fight the darkness or whatever. That's the explanation that he gives.
I guess just insinuating that like he is almost borderline some sort of curse himself.
Yeah.
So he can't really cure corruption if he already is like close to being it.
Yeah, no, he's like attuned to it, sort of, so it's not something he's very strong against. So this has to be something that Chisei has to do. So they get her all kitted out, and they're like, "Go fix the curse." And she walks out to this little island in the lake where the curse is hanging out. And right as she's about to try to clear out this corruption, she gets attacked by bad people.
The same ones as before.
Yeah, so the person that chucked her in the lake earlier puts a knife to her throat and is like, "Don't move." And then this other guy shows up and grabs the aerial that was helping her. She had one of those little harpy aerials from like earlier on in the series that was going to help her clear the corruption. So yeah, they show up and they're just like, we're going to tell you about how Elias is a bad guy and he's using you and all this other stuff, and he's just like, "You're going to die," and all this other stuff. And she's just like, "What?" And then that's where the episode ends. And then we get to the next episode, which is Love Conquers All. This was a pretty strong episode. I liked it. The stakes were high. I'm already a little tired of Chisei getting kidnapped randomly. I assume this will continue to happen throughout the series, but like she is like already been like kidnapped at least 2 times, and I'm just like, all right, I see where this is going. Aside from that, was like my only real complaint. I like all the talking cats. I thought they were really fun characters. There's one named Jasper that was kind of a dick, and he just like jumped on Chisei at one point, and that was really fun. But I think overall it's a fun setup up until you get to the end, and suddenly it's like really dark, and you're like, why did that guy kill all those cats? What the fuck is going on here?
It went from a fun trip to the cat kingdom to a cursed, like, animal murderer.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you have these like really like interesting fun setup at the beginning, and it's just like, oh, talking cats, and then it's just like, yeah, this guy murdered a bunch of cats, and it's just like, oh, that's kind of fucked, bro. Why would you do that?
And they show it too.
Yeah, there's just like the guy with a cleaver just hacking up cats, and it's like, Jesus fuck, not about this life. So yeah, and then it ends on a cliffhanger of Chisei has been kidnapped yet again. This is the second time this episode that she's been taken hostage. Holy shit, she's winning. So the next episode, Love Conquers All, we hop in, and Chisei basically learns immediately that Sleighbeggies, they process magic, and because they process it so thoroughly and so often and so much of it, it basically shortens their lifespans a ton, and they die very quickly.
They just like basically overcharge themselves with magic.
Yeah, this has sort of been alluded to, especially with the dragon and her passing out, and the fact that she's passed out like a few different times and had to recover for several days every time she does anything revolving around magic. So this just sort of adds up with everything that's been like foreshadowed about her, basically. She basically says, I don't care. I wanted to die anyways, so at least I could be useful. Like, Elias is the first person that's told me that he's happy and that, like, I'm part of his family. So she's fine with being used as long as she's got somewhere to, like, lay her head at night. This is basically it.
But I mean, the sorcerers, well, they were, kidnapping her and pointing a knife at her throat. I mean, they made really good points when they did it. They're like,
oh God, yeah.
They're like this creature. He's a very not nice looking creature that bought you from a slave auction for a lot of money.
Yeah.
You do not have any reason to be trusting this creature.
And then, like, she's just like, I don't care. He was nice to me, which is like the most trauma response ever. Like, she's been through so much shit in her life, and I get that, but she's just like, but he was friendly. And they're just like, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't feel emotions. He literally is treating you as like an experiment. And she's just like, nope, we're family.
Which they had a good point with that too. It's like he's been using you for like side jobs.
Yeah, like you're just an experiment. He's just watching you to see what happens, basically. But she's just like, I don't care. He's nice to me, which is the fucked up response to have. But also, like, if you've ever talked to anybody that's been abused real bad, like she has, then you're just like, okay, this seems to line up with her fucking history. Basically, is just like someone was nice to her, she's gonna latch immediately onto that person. So
yeah.
Either way, the sorcerers get fought off. Elias is just like, nah, this is my girl. And then chases the sorcerers away with thorns, because that's what he does. And then Chisei goes over. She's just like, time to fix this corruption. And then she pokes the corruption and gets sucked into it. And now she's in the memories of the corruption. And she gets to see Matthew's history and how Mina and Matthew are these two folks that lived a long time ago. And Mina was sickly, and so Matthew found a sorcerer. And the sorcerer was just like, oh, I can help you with that. And then gave him some instructions, like collect as many cats as you can and start killing them and collect their essence and their souls and their blood and stuff or whatever.
It's like literally, it's like you're going to make medicine out of the cat's 9 lives.
Yes.
And feed it to her.
He's distilling their souls, basically, is what the idea is. And so, like, Mina is out one day. She's feeling better. She goes to find him, and he's off in the forest somewhere. And she finds a shed. And as stay out of my shed, is what Matthew should have told her. She opens the door, and yeah, there's a bunch of dead cats everywhere, like, and living cats in cages. He's hacking up a cat right now. It's pretty fucked up. And then he's just like, I'm doing this for you because I care. And then the sorcerer shows up. And they force her to, like, drink this potion of distilled souls, and then she turns into corruption, basically. She turns into mud. She can't retain her form, and she is now dead.
Yeah, that was, like, the big... It was already bad enough as it was, and then it was, like, the even bigger twist where, like, the sorcerer just actually holds her down as they force feed her this medicine, and she just, like, implodes.
Yeah, she just literally loses all of her form. So it's pretty fucked. It's very rough to watch. This is very intense and gross and dramatic. And then Matthew loses his mind even further and goes outside, and he's just like, I just have to kill more cats, and then I can fix this. And there, when he gets outside, he finds Mina's cat, Tim. Fucking Tim.
Tim.
What a great name. And Tim is just like, nope, and bites him in the throat and kills him. And then as he's dying, Tim is just like, yeah, I'm not allowing you to, like, die peacefully either. Like, you fucked up a lot.
He's like, I was voted to be the first king of the cats.
Yeah, so Tim's the first cat king. And he kills Matthew. Apparently they chuck his body in the lake, like I said. But all the cats band together to basically kill him, as was mentioned before. And then at this point we've got the full history of everything that's happened between these two, and now Mina just wants to move on and, like, go back into the universe and be dead and be fine with it. Molly is like, I can guide you to the next world. I'm on my ninth life anyways, and so it's fine. And then she says, like, but what about that girl? And she's just, Molly's like, I'm gonna die someday. What do you want me to do? I'm a cat. And then she says like, but wait, we've got the wind aerial here, and she can just carry Mina off into the next world, and that's what they end up doing, is basically scattering her into the next world, where she meets Matthew, and they have this like beautiful reunion with the cat murdering man. It was kind of weird, that part, for me. But that resolves everything. Chisei's back, she's with Elias again, and then like the corruption's gone, basically. So yes, this was a hard episode to watch. It was dark, it was violent, it was very grimy, and is the word I'd like to use for it. But at the same time, it ends on a good note. The dead souls get to return to
whatever the afterlife is in this universe.
Yeah, exactly. The Christian heaven, we'll say. There's churches in this, aren't there? So I mean, hey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they get to return the souls of the dead to the universe and all this other, in their version of heaven or whatever. And that's sort of where we're at. She has removed the corruption, and everybody should be better off for it. And Molly's still a cat, which is good. She's still alive. She's still taking care of her kid. Again, good episode. Really dark. Like I said, felt grimy, but the end was pretty good.
Yeah. There's a hard contrast from what the show has usually been up to this point.
Yeah, definitely. Nah, this is one of those ones where, like, even at the end when there's resolution, you're just like, I don't know, man. I feel like this is kind of iffy, but it's over. I guess I'll give it that.
It was purified better than what they were intending to do to start.
True.
The cursed people wanted to be killed off and erased entirely, and the cat was fully prepared to sacrifice itself.
Yeah.
To help this. And she managed to make it so that neither one of them had to do that.
Yeah, so at least she managed to help everybody in the situation, and it was like the best out of a shitty situation. And granted, the shitty situation, like the worst part of it had occurred like 100 or 200, whatever, like years and years before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's pluses and minuses all around. It's just one of those things where it's like we've come to terms. You know, that's what it feels like. Is like we've at least come to terms with everything. Anything else about Magus Bride this week? Those are the only 2 episodes we watched, was episodes 4 and 5.
And that was a packed 2 episodes.
Yeah, that was like its whole arc. We got a satisfying start to finish story there, basically. It was good. I liked it. For the most part. Again, just a little grimy, a little rough, but past that, like, it was a satisfying watch. Next up, we watched Miss Vampire That Lives in My Neighborhood. We watched episodes 3 and 4. Episode 3, the vampire goes to school. Basically, it starts off with Sophie, and she's got too many Dakimakuras. She can't fit them all in her coffin. How upsetting. They go and visit Hinata, which is Akari's friend, and there's a dog there that gets mad at Sophie, assumedly because she's a vampire. But she's just like, maybe it's because you're wearing black. The dog thinks you're an intruder. Who knows? Excuse me. They talk about families and things like that, and Sophie's like, I don't know, my family's been gone for 300 years.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. And Akari gets a little, she's just like, I didn't mean to make you upset. And Sophie's like, I'm fine. Just it's all right. Everything's good.
Traditional vampire, like, talk, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what happens when they live too long, or if their whole family gets turned with them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we get mentions of like Sophie's friends like here and there and things like that. We get foreshadowed basically for another character that shows up next episode. And then we also get oh shoot, there was another thing that happened here. Either way. That's the first half of the episode. The second half of the episode is Sophie goes to school. She's going to school to take Akari her lunch because she forgot it, and then she ends up sitting in for a student that wants to go home early.
Mm-hmm.
It was dumb. There was a few fun little gags, but that was basically the short and long of it. It's really hard to talk about the show because the show is like it's like 80% just dumb gags.
Yeah.
Like the plot doesn't matter. None of this shit actually matters that we talked about here.
This is not a plot show. This is just turn your brain off and have fun.
It's literally just for laughs. And like it has a few good moments. The first couple episodes were probably a lot stronger than the 2 that we watched this time. Just because like it's earlier on, it's fresher. It's like the jokes are more solid, but as the series goes on, it kind of like there's always like a dip mid-series, you know. And then like as usually you have like a few high points, and then the ending is usually really good with these kind of like seasonal shows.
Depends how hard they push the same jokes as they did in the first couple episodes.
Yeah, and I like that they've at least like not stretched out, but like spaced out. They spaced out like some of the more interesting conversations you can have around vampirism.
Yeah.
You know, so that's at least pretty fun. They at least bring something new each like half episode, because the way this show is broken up is like the first half of the episode is like a plot, and then the second half, it's very like four coma, if you know, like the 4-panel comic strips, that kind of style.
Yeah.
But like not quite so broken up, you know. Episode 4, Sophie's friend Ellie is here. And yes, Sophie's friend Ellie is here. Ellie is here from America. She's a vampire. She fell asleep for 100 years, and now things are real different than they were. So basically, she just shows up and hangs out for this episode, and then kind of catches up with Sophie and meets Akari. And there's a moment where she's just like, humans and vampires can't be friends. And then Akari's just like, shut up, nerd! That's my friend Sophie. It's a fun little charming episode. I like Ellie as a character, and then at the end Ellie like goes off, and then Sophie's like, she could be back in a day, she could be back in 100 years, I don't know. And then she shows up the next day and she's like, I moved into the neighborhood. Now there's 2 vampires in this neighborhood.
2.
Yeah. And so I don't know, this was a fun episode. We got to meet Ellie. Ellie's an interesting character. She's very she's a much more traditional vampire, but at the same time, she's what, like 100 years older than Sophie.
Yeah.
We got that. She was the one that like dragged Sophie to like public executions and stuff back in the day in France. They got to see Marie Antoinette get chopped at the guillotine. So I like her as a character. She's interesting. She's got her own like particularities about herself, but just in general, I think she's a fun character. Did you have any specific thoughts about these last couple episodes of this show?
Well, not really.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not as funny as the first couple episodes. The jokes are still there and they're still good when they hit, but there's just like, they don't hit as well because we're already in that, like, it's starting to go a little bit into a slump, I feel like. But the general cuteness of this show just sort of carries it through. I think is like the biggest thing about it. And after watching a woman turn to mush, I needed something stupid and fun. Like, thanks, Magus Bride.
Something to lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. After that, we had a lovely dinner. But the next thing we watched at this point, there's a guy at work that told me I needed to watch Solo Leveling.
All right. So, I think you and me and at least 1 or 2 other people all agree that there's always one person that recommends you shows like these, and you know that you don't trust their taste in shows.
I just wasn't sure. He likes a lot of anime that are very just action shonen stuff, and I don't have a problem with those shows, but I also don't seek them out as much as I used to.
Yeah,
so,
it's just a lot of these shows. For one, we're just be blatant with it. We're too old for too many of these kind of shows.
There's a certain point where I'm just like, well, the other thing is that it feels like a lot of modern shonen are just trying to recreate the glory of the big 3 back in the day.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's all Naruto or Bleach or One Piece or sometimes Dragon Ball Z, but that's really rare nowadays.
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know. This was darker. It was edgier. It was more bleachy, kind of. But also, it's an isekai, so it's kind of overlordy.
Well, kind of. It's one of those weird like half ones, basically.
It's very Gate.
Yeah, this is literally Gate.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's just like portals open up, monsters come through. Ah.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, there's one big thing that makes a difference with these kinds of shows, and it's what are the stakes in these types of shows. And if your answer is there are no stakes, then I'm just going to tell you it's probably automatically not a good show.
Yeah.
This show has stakes.
Very much so. So let's run through the first couple episodes real quick. Did we get an exposition dump right off the bat, which I kind of love, honestly. I like when they do that. They're just like, here's what's happening in the world and why it's weird and interesting. And we learned about how portals started opening up and people gained powers. The people that gain powers are called hunters. They have different levels. They're ranked S through E. And our main character, Genu, is the weakest of the weak. He has like very, very little power. He is ranked E. And basically he's always hurt and he never makes any money and he's always fucked over.
Yeah, the big problem not problem, the main plot point of this is that unlike most other shows of this type, whenever you are given powers in this world, your powers can never change.
Nope, you get what you get and that's it.
You can only do what you are given. You can never get any better or worse. You are exactly that way forever.
So whenever you go and find out that you're a hunter, you find out what rank you are, and that's your rank forever. That's it. So yes, it begins with Genu and some other folks, and they're going to go on a raid. So the other setup for this is that portals open randomly, and they have a week after they open up for people to go in and kill all the monsters. There's always a boss monster, and then when they kill the boss monster, that will close the portal, so they have to get back out before that happens, assumedly. And that's how they keep things in check. Each portal has a different rank, so if it's like a B rank portal, you can't go in, assumedly, if you're like D rank or whatever.
Or at least you'd probably die anyway.
Yeah, it's more of a measure, because actually one of the characters who is like D rank in this show is like, yeah, I've gone into B rank before and survived, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the ranking is just their power level, not how good they are at using their powers, I'd say.
Yeah, it's how strong they actually are. And the point with the portals, too, is if they don't close them off, then whatever's inside the portal is released into the human world.
Exactly. And whenever they start breaking in, that's when all hell really does break loose. The other reason they go in is because it makes them money. Because when they kill monsters, they get essence stones. And when they get essence stones, they can use those to craft weapons and armor that are stronger. Or they can sell them to the government, because the government wants to use them to make energy. So essence stones for killing monsters is like the big thing that they make money off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
The group is 13 people in this instance with Genu in it. And they go in and they clear it out relatively quickly, fairly easily. And then Genu gets hurt, but then he gets healed because there's a healer in their group. And then they find out it's a secret double dungeon. There's more dungeon to go.
Yeah.
At this point, we get a cutaway to a tall blonde woman who stops a robbery, and they're just like, she's S-ranked, and then she like runs away, and like it was just like, here's a character, we're coming back to her later, you know.
Yeah.
And so then we go back to the folks in the dungeon. They voted to keep going at this point, and they find a door. They go in the door. It's a room full of statues, and then one statue triggers a trap and cuts a guy in half, and now we're down to 12 people already.
Because the door shuts behind them, and they are stuck in this. These are not like regular statues. These things are like gigantic building-sized statues.
Yeah, they're like 20, 30 feet tall statues, right? And so they're attacking now. Well, one of them attacks and then goes back to where it was because the guy tried to open the door. That guy is now dead. And then Genu's like, we're all going to die. At this point, like, they've read off, like, there's a list in there of, like, 3 commandments that they have to do. And then we get into, like, episode 2, right? Episode 2, one guy gets lasered by the biggest statue in the room. Or 1 or 2 people. Either way, they get dead. They're dead. They're gone. Zip, zap, gone.
People are just getting absolutely obliterated by these statues.
Yeah, and they're at this point, they're just like, this is insta-kill. These are insta-kill monsters. Insta-kill deaths. That's like A or S class. We should not be here. Something has gone wrong. Because this is supposed to be like a D rank portal, right?
E. This was like bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
E.
Very, very, like, specifically for... Should have been an easy clear, right? But there are 3 commandments they find on a tablet in there. 1 is worship God, 2 is praise God, and then 3 is prove your faith, right? Worship is they all have to face the biggest statue in the room and bow down to it, right? Mm-hmm. And they figure that out.
Because the main character starts like thinking about this. He's like, I'm used to having to be the coward in the back using my brain. Because I'm so weak, I have to actually think.
And this statue is the one that was, like, lasering people. So they all bow down to it, and then his face changes, and it gets, like, really creepy. It stands up and starts stepping on people and killing them, and this is where they have to praise, praise God by running to this. There's a bunch of statues around the room, and some of them don't have weapons, they have instruments, and so you have to get to all the ones that have instruments, and then you're safe. So they get to all the ones, like, that have instruments and they're safe, but the main character loses his leg in this part, and so he's all fucked up. And then we get to prove your faith, and there's an altar that pops up in the middle of the room, and they all have to go to it, and there's a lot going on here, but like the action is really carrying this like through, even though it's a lot of like trying to think and figure stuff out. The action, and like there's a lot of gruesome deaths here. There's people getting stomped on, there's people getting lasered, and just the one guy gets chopped in half, like vertically right down the middle, and he's just like, I got 2 kids, I can't die here. Chopped in half, dead. So yeah, the last thing that they had to do was prove your faith, and that is to stay in the room. Everybody else runs out except for him, and he stays in the room. Everybody else escapes basically, but somebody had to stay in the middle in order for the door not to close completely.
Yeah, because standing in the middle was what opened the door again for them. So somebody had to stay, and since he couldn't walk,
it was him.
Yeah.
So everybody else gets out, and he's dying on the floor. And then the statues come in, and they all just start beating the shit out of him and chopping him up and stuff. And then he gets tossed on the altar, and he's about to die. He's 0.02 seconds away from death, and a fucking a menu opens up in front of him. And it's just like, would you like to live? Yes or no? You know?
It's like, oh, here we go. Here's the isekai computer screen popping up in your vision.
It's just like, oh, God, it's Windows Vista. I'm already dead. I'm in hell. So, yeah, first 2 episodes, that's the run-through for those. Yeah, it's interesting because like you get a peek at who the main character is and what his thought patterns are, and like the fact that he's had to struggle through every single interaction.
Yeah,
that he's had since he started doing this, so that he can save money for his sister who's in college and his mom who's dying or is like has this weird disease and all this other stuff. And he's just out here trying to make some money. He's just like, I don't want money, I need money. And that was the thing that I was like, oh, that's so fucking harsh. Because, like, you know, you can see it. You know, he's not out here to be a rich man. He's out here to keep his family afloat.
Yeah. And so many of these plot points, it's like, it's nothing we haven't seen before. If you like mash Sword Art Online and like Gate together, you get this. But
yeah, basically.
It's being carried so hard by how it's being executed and the action, though.
Yeah, the action's fantastic in it. Frankly, even though it's really just like so far in the first episode, it's a lot of people just like getting killed.
Yeah.
But in the first 2 episodes, but it's still like really dramatic. I like the setup. I think it's really interesting. Honestly, as soon as the like Microsoft Windows appears, I'm just like, oh, okay, that's a little fucking much.
That hurts a little bit.
Yeah, that was like that's a little too isekai for me even, but it's fine. We'll see how it goes. I'm like the main character's dying on an altar, and like Bill Gates reaches out and is just like, would you like to live? You know, like I'm interested. I want to know where it's going. And like every episode is a cliffhanger, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm invested at this point. I want to fucking know. And we're watching the dub, by the way. The dub's pretty solid. I like it. It's very obviously Korean. The names are Korean. But aside from that, I mean, it looks like it's solid anime. It's good stuff. So.
Voice actors have been doing a perfectly good job.
Yeah, it's all really solid. We get to episode 3. Main character who is dying on an altar and very upset, and he's just like, I don't want to fucking die. I want to do this. I want another chance. And then he gets his other chance. He wakes up in a hospital. He's whole and safe, and he doesn't know what's happening. And then some folks from the Hunters Association, apparently on loan from Hunter x Hunter, appear. Really, guys? Couldn't come up with a better title? All right, fine. It's fine. Whatever. Turns out it's 3 days later. An S-class group went in to like close that portal, and they just found him laying there, and he was fine.
You know, all his limbs back.
All of his limbs back, complete fine health, perfect. So he's been asleep for 3 days, and they're just like, did you go through a second awakening? Turns out what we told you and what they told us was a lie. Some people do go through a second awakening after they get their power levels checked, and then they become even more powerful. But it's very, very rare.
Yeah, it's assumed that it's just not actually going to happen to basically anybody.
Yeah. And so they check him, and no, he didn't go through a second awakening. He's still the weakest piece of shit on earth. What a fucking loser. Everyone point in line. But he does have a screen floating in front of his face that only he can see. That's right. He's got an invisible Apple Vision Pro. It's literally what it looks like, as far as I can tell. But so he's got this screen, and it's just like, congratulations, you accepted. You're now a player. He's popped his collar and was like, fuck yeah, I am. And then there was like a reference to One Punch Man that Carlos was a big fan of. where he got a daily quest and it was like do 100 sit-ups, push-ups, squats, and then run 10 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
Which is literally what One Punch Man does to become strong, right?
Yeah.
So he's in the hospital. He's like, I ain't doing that shit. Whatever. We get a cutaway to the tall blonde woman again, and she's like taking a job for a guild.
Yeah.
They're just like, show these B-rank people how to do this, and she's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of pop-ins to little side characters to
Yeah.
show you that there are in fact more people in this world than the main character.
Yeah, like we get to pop over to
His
what is it?
sister and his mom a few times.
Yeah, and then like the leader of the Hunter Association and all this other stuff. So they are building a world, and it's pretty interesting, frankly. So he doesn't do his dailies, and then he has to do a survival game as punishment, where he has to survive a giant, like 40-foot tall centipede that's poisonous for 4 hours in order to like make up for the fact he didn't do his dailies. Which is like, bro, if I didn't do my dailies and that was the result, oh my god, I'd be doing so few gotchas anymore.
You just sign your life away to the gotcha. You don't have to do your dailies forever.
It's just how it goes. So yeah, he's gaming. At this point, he's like, we cut back in a few days later. He's been doing his dailies. He's upped his strength a lot. Every day that he does his dailies, he gets a random item drop. And he gets to put 3 ability points into one of his stats, and he's just been dumping it all into strength. So
now he's officially the only like cheat character in the series that we know of.
That we know of. So yeah, and then
can't forget he gets a loot box too.
Yeah, he does get a loot box, and in the one loot box, he gets an instance dungeon key. And so that's where, after he gets out of the hospital, he's like, time to do an instance dungeon. I've leveled up my strength a lot. We'll see what happens. I can always leave, right? And then he uses the key. He goes into the instance dungeon, and he can't leave. That's the rule. He gets a little pop-up that's like, you can leave. You cannot leave unless you have, like, an escape stone or something.
Or win.
Or you kill the boss. Okay, cool. He goes down in the instance. There's 3 goblins. He fights them, and he like manages to pull out a win against the 3 goblins. And then he's attacked by a wolf with a metal jaw. And that's where we end, is right when he's getting attacked by this metal wolf jaw. Yep. Metal jaw wolf. Whatever. It's a strong setup. Another cliffhanger, of course, because you got to get people to come back every episode, right?
Yep.
I like it so far, honestly, and I hate to say that. Because it is so very, like, so many shows have done this already, right?
The majority of the show is so generic and cliche, but it's been executed like really well.
The
honestly.
Animation, so it's A1 Pictures is doing the animation, and well, I mean the entire anime, and it's really well done. Like,
yeah,
the action's really solid. It all flows together really well. The scenario is actually like interesting enough that it keeps pulling me back, and I'm more interested in it now.
And there's a main heroine in the series that we didn't actually mention, but she's been hanging out with the main character through a lot of this, and going through the whole statue situation really screwed her up. I'm really
doing, like, psychological recovery now. She's like in therapy and shit.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how she's gonna be involved in the story.
Yeah, so I'm interested in that. Like, the characters are all really cool. I like that the main character is just some dumb loser. And he's just like, I'm literally the worst, and I hate that. And then eventually now he's gaining power and stuff, and it's pretty cool. I don't know. Every time, at least, I just hate these fucking titles. Bro, I hate seeing, like, my instant death ability makes me shoot rocks out of my nipples every time. And I'm like, what the fuck is this goddamn show? Like, please stop with these titles. So as soon as I saw like a solo leveling, I was like, I don't even fucking... because it has like a big long title, doesn't it?
I think solo leveling is the name of it, isn't it?
Okay. Like, I thought that... I'll be honest. I'm so ruined right now for a fucking isekai anime that, like, I assumed that was just what people were calling it.
No, I think that's the actual real full name.
Oh my god, it is. Alternatively translated as Only I Level Up. So, but either way, it's just a couple words. That's fine. I'm good with that. Yeah, and it is a Korean, as we said, it's a Korean production originally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's cool. I like it so far. I'm glad it has a simple, straightforward name, and that's about where I'm at. The action brings me back. It just does. My 14-year-old self that lives in my heart. He's still there, and he's still just like, yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, it's not as cool as Hellsing, but it's pretty cool, you know.
The action was still really good, though.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, you can very easily just eat popcorn, watch TV show, you know, like it's pretty solid, and it's definitely got enough hooks that it's easy to get brought back into it. So,
especially with all those cliffhangers.
God, there's so many. But yeah, that's what we watched this week. Carlos, any other thoughts? Any other opinions?
Yeah, it was all good stuff.
I'd like to. I bought some movies a while ago. I think maybe next week we might be able to get to watch one of those. We'll see what happens, but fingers crossed we'll get to watch like Paprika or something. I don't know. I do want to see that. And what's the other one I bought? Oh, Tokyo Godfathers. That's right. Or maybe we'll watch something else. We'll see. Either way, thank you for stopping by. Likes and subscribes, all that. Always appreciated. And we'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.